When we hear the name Milwaukee, many of us think of Harley-Davidson, which makes sense because they've been here for over 117 years. But there's an industry that's been here for almost 2 centuries. I'm talking about brewing. We're going to take a look at the start and some of the twists along the way in this vital industry. Join me, but you might need a designated driver because we're going on a beer run. In 1844, Jacob Best founded the Empire Brewing Company right here in downtown Milwaukee. A few years later, changing the name to reflect the family of Best & Company. In 1853, Jacob Sr. retired, leaving the company to 2 of his sons, Jacob Jr. and Philip Best. In the mid-1860s, Philip bought out his brother and brought on his 2 sons-in-law, Frederick and Emil, to help with the operations. After Emil's untimely death in 1888, Frederick found himself in the sole ownership of the company and changed the name to reflect that. That was Frederick Pabst.
Pabst was an early innovator in both beer production and national marketing, giving them a jump on their competition. They were also the largest brewer in the United States for much of the late 19th century. Production was moved out of Milwaukee in 1996, but the Pabst parent company currently brews over 24 brands of beer. About half is still for Pabst Blue Ribbon, with the other half including a few more you may recognize.
In 1996, Pabst closed their operations here in Milwaukee, and these buildings sat empty until 2001 when Jim Hartel put in a successful bid to buy the old buildings. He had a vision of opening them to the public to celebrate 2 great breweries, Best and Pabst. And while there's no longer any beer production here, Jim and his team have put together a fun and interesting tour of the buildings and one very unique gift shop.
For more information on Best Place Tours, please check their website at bestplacemilwaukee.com.
In 1849, a gentleman named August Krug founded a brewery here in Milwaukee. In 1856, Krug perished in a shipwreck, leaving his bookkeeper to take over the daily operations. A few years later, the bookkeeper married Krug's widow and changed the name of the brewery to his own. He was Joseph Schlitz.
The Schlitz Brewing Company was another one of Milwaukee's brewing giants, marketing themselves as the beer that made Milwaukee famous. Schlitz was one of the largest breweries in the United States for a significant part of the 20th century. Schlitz brought a number of innovations to the brewing industry, including the first brown bottle in 1911, which protected the beer from the harmful effects of light during shipping. But some might recognize Schlitz for something else. The opening of the Laverne and Shirley sitcom was filmed at Schlitz. In fact, the fictional brewery in the show Schatz was actually a play on the name Schlitz. After an unfortunate series of missteps in the 1970s, resulting in declining sales, Schlitz was acquired by Stroh in 1982, ending their operations in Milwaukee. Today, the complex is the Schlitz Park Office Center.
In 1850, 2 of Jacob Best's sons, Charles and Lorenz, left the Best & Company operation to found their own brewery. They decided to locate it on what was then called the Plank Road, named after the wooden planks that covered the old dirt road between Milwaukee and Watertown, Wisconsin. Primitive by today's standards, the brothers knew that this innovation would help them get their supplies in and their beer out. So what did they want to call their new venture? The Plank Road Brewery. And 170 years later, it's still on the same site. In 1855, an experienced brewer from Germany named Frederick Miller bought the Best Company operation and added his name to the marquee, now calling it Frederick Miller Plank Road Brewery. Today, we just know it as Miller.
Miller offers 2 different tours of their facility. There's an 80-minute tour that covers the brewing operations and a 2.5-hour tour that covers Miller's 165-year history of brewing in Milwaukee. You can check their website at millerbrewerytour.com for more information. About a half-mile from the old Schlitz brewery is Lakefront Brewery, a recent but significant addition to Milwaukee's brewing history, including the first certified organic beer in the U.S., and one of the first to produce a gluten-free beer.
The Lakefront Brewery was started by the Klisch brothers, Jim and Russ, making homebrewed beer in their home. They gained some experience, won a few brewing contests, and opened up a small brewery and an old bakery near their home in Milwaukee. They sold their first barrel of beer to a local tavern in December of 1987, which they said was in rolling distance from the brewery, and they never looked back.
They offer a few tours. One is a 45-minute tour they describe as a mix of facts, lore, jokes, and beer. The other is a weekly 3-hour technical tour of their operations, which includes a 90-minute food and beer pairing. You can check their website for more information at lakefrontbrewery.com. While all these breweries were independent operations, it's interesting to see how their history intertwined over the years. In 1850, 2 of Jacob Best's sons founded the Plank Road Brewery, which was later bought by Frederick Miller in 1855. 130 years later, in 1985, Miller introduced 2 new innovative beers. They were unique because they were not pasteurized, making them real draft beers in a bottle. The first was called Plank Road Original Draft in honor of Miller's early days, but it was overshadowed by the other beer they rolled out the following year. You might have heard of it, Miller Genuine Draft. In 1999, Pabst purchased the Stroh Brewing Company, giving them the rights to the Schlitz name. Today, Schlitz is available again, this time brewed by Pabst. Also, in a quirk of history, the Great Chicago Fire in 1871 all but wiped out the Chicago brewing industry, opening the door for the Milwaukee brewers to serve a new and very large market, eventually making Milwaukee the beer capital of the country.
One final connection. When the Lakefront Brewery expanded their operations a few years ago, they bought the bottling line from the old Schlitz plant. While no one knows for sure if it's the same one used in the Laverne and Shirley opening, it is of the same age and vintage. Regardless, in a nod to that history, if you take the Lakefront Brewery tour, you may find your group singing the opening song from Laverne and Shirley. Don't worry if you don't remember the words, they've got them posted right on the wall. That's it for now. Be well, ride safe, and I'll see you down the road.